take a look, I got an animal over in that preconditioning pen. She's a little bit she's kind of so she's a bloater, and I think that a long time ago maybe she had BRD kind of bad because her lungs are kind of messed up. And so I kept her over there, and I figured that maybe about next week or so, when the grass grows in a little bit more, I can let her out and she's not going to bloat to death. And if you take a look over here, you're gonna see I got this grain. I actually didn't give him any grain this morning. I just this is the grain from last night, and it's just a bunch of the small calves eating at it. So that's that's good. I really want the small cattle eating the grain. The big animals, they got plenty of room and space and everything, and they can eat a larger proportion of food. And so I really want the smaller animals eating the grain. So that's good. And so today's Saturday. Tomorrow, I'm actually going to be vaccinating the animals tomorrow. I'm going to be vaccinating. Okay, so what I got planned right now is that tomorrow I'm going to vaccinate the animals. I'm going to go check out the new lease property. I got to go take a look at the new lease property. And then on Monday, I will go take a look at this. I was saying that there are 3 sale barns within a half hour of lease property number 1, and there's also another 3 sale barns within a half hour of lease property number 2. All right, so I'm gonna go take a look at lease property number 2. Tomorrow I will go take a look at lease property number 2, and there's 3 sale barns within a half an hour of lease property number 1, and there are 3 sale barns within half an hour of lease property number 2. So and also there's I got a lot of sale barns. Okay, so on Monday I got a new sale barn that I want to go take a look at. I'm gonna go and just take a look at it. I'm gonna see what's happening, see what the sale barn looks like. I'm gonna see if it's any good. And then the big idea. Okay, so right now I have 34 animals. All right, I got 34 animals, and I've taken a look across my herd, and I would anticipate that out of these 34 animals, 18 of them are going to go to the sale barn within the next 3 months. All right, I will effectively be selling about 6 cattle a month, and these animals are going to hit the scale pretty hard. Technically, in terms of like technicality, tomorrow I was supposed to be taking animals to the sale barn, right? I mean, it's kind of this thing that in reality, I set up my business to go to the sale barn every 2 weeks. That's effectively how I set up my business, was to go to the sale barn every 2 weeks. But every once in a while, when you look at the calendar, like this month, the first Monday of the month was the 3rd, and then it was the 10th, and then it was the 17th, and then it was the 24th, and then it's the 31st. So technically, I would be going to the sale barn 3 times this month. But I'm not gonna do that, just because I effectively have an unlimited amount of very high quality food, and it's looking like on the first month of next the first Monday of next month, the weather is gonna be raining, and so I probably won't be going to the sale barn just because there'll be too much mud. And so I take a look at my situation, and it's like, by the 2nd week of next month, I will probably be taking these animals to market. And these animals that are going to market, they're actually going to hit the scales very hard. I would actually say that these animals are going to hit the scale at about, on the 3 of them, the average for the 3 of them might even come in at about a 750. All right, it might even come in at 750. I have an unlimited quantity, practically an unlimited quantity of very, very, very high quality food, right? I mean, you take a look at it. I mean, the grass is actually growing. All right, my biomass is being accumulated at a very rapid rate. I have a large amount of biomass, and this is what my field looks like even when I graze it 24/7. With about 2.5 animals per acre. All right, this is what my field still looks like. And so, even if I graze this field at 10 animals an acre, they're not going to eat all of this, okay? Not even close. You know, even if I increase the number of cattle that I have by 500%, they're not going to eat all of this. Not even close, okay? Not even close. And so I effectively have an unlimited quantity of very high quality food. And my whole thing about growing grass is that it's not worth underperforming. All right, the amount of money that I can save by underperforming is not worth saving the money. It's just not. You know, I was talking about this yesterday, but realistically, when I take a look across a 10-acre field, I mean, we're talking about maybe, we're talking about maybe, with over an 8-month period, maybe we're talking about maybe about 450 units of fertilizer. If we're just gonna talk about in terms of a unit of fertilizer, instead of just straight nitrogen or phosphorus or potassium, if we're going to talk about it in terms of just straight unit of fertilizer, 450 units of fertilizer over 8 months, it's not worth saving the money on fertilizer. It's just not. All right, I would rather do other things like diagnose the mineral deficiencies. You know, take a look at the output of the soil, right? Take a look at the soil, right? And then is the soil dry? Is the soil wet? Right, I mean, I would rather, there are many other better things to do than to save, $50, than to save $100 on fertilizer. A lot of better things to do, right? And so, but I mean, take a look at it. I mean, this is not fake, right? This is not some like artificial intelligence generated grass field, right? This is not like some fake thing, right? To fake it till you make it is a joke. Fake it till you make it. It does not work like that. You either make it or you don't. That's the reality. You know, we should get rid of fake it till you make it and turn it into you either make it or you don't. All right, we should start saying things like that. You either make it or you don't. And when you take a look at my results, I effectively did so well at farming that it put me in the very, 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 very top percentiles of the entire U.S. economy. Not even just for farming, the entire U.S. economy, legitimately the whole thing. All right, I'm in the very, 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 very top percentiles. I don't even know how much money I make, right? And I'm telling you, and I'm showing you how I do everything. This is how I structure my deals. This is what I do. This is how I make my money. This is how much money I make. This is what I do with the money. I'm legitimately showing you everything. And I'm doing it for free. I make plenty of money. Nobody's paying me to do anything. I don't care how much money you offer me. Nobody's paying me to do anything. I already have plenty of money. All right, and the amount of money that I'm making is actually going up on a vertical scale. Nobody's paying me to do anything. All right, have fun dying poor. I don't care about your deal. Die tomorrow and take your deal with you. Nobody's paying me to do anything. All right, and I am showing you how I do it. I legitimately even show you how much money I make. All right, and when you take a look at me and you just take it all in for what it is. I effectively did so well at farming that it put me in the very, 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 very top percentiles of the entire U.S. economy. The very top. Right? I mean, and that's the thing about me is that, I don't really, it's whatever to me. It's whatever to me. I understand that I make a ballistic amount of money, and it's like, I sat there and I thought about it, and I was like, I don't really want a Lamborghini, and what am I going to do with the money? I'm going to grow my business, and then I'll figure it out. Right? That's what I figured I would do, right? I will go buy more cattle, right? I have a realistic deal that I offer people, and I have this whole thing going on, right? And that's very good. But, and I was actually talking about this yesterday, but, I don't really want to go and, I don't really want to sell 18 animals at the same time. Because I was talking about this, the whole idea of, I got 15 animals on my lease property, and, all of these animals, except for the 3 biggest ones, are effectively going to go to the other lease property, right? And, and so, and I honestly, I even want to use a little bit of that. But here's the thing. If I liquidate, okay, so these 3 animals are going to get liquidated at the same time, and that leaves me with 15 animals. If I liquidate 15 animals at the same time, and they hit the scale at about 750, I would have to buy like 35 animals. I would have to buy like 32 animals. All right, and I don't want to precondition 32 animals at the same time. All right, and that's just over the next 3 months. All right, I would effectively be, oh, okay, so when I sell these three, okay, y'all want to take a look at the animals. This is one of the animals that's actually, you can actually tell that he's conditioning. He's conditioning pretty quickly. And I was actually talking to you about this animal right here. He eats a lot. He eats nonstop, and he does not bloat. So that's very, very, very good for me. He eats a lot. I mean, take a look at how well he's conditioning already, right? He's conditioning very well. And this animal, I bought him on March 3rd, and he hit the scale at 645 pounds. Over the last 3 weeks, over the last 4 weeks, he has probably put on almost 90 pounds. He's probably about 740 pounds right now. And that animal in front of him is another animal that's going to market. That animal was technically supposed to be going to market on Monday, and technically the animal was supposed to hit the scale at about 650. And the animal right now, as of right now, will probably hit the scale at about 650. And the animal next to him right there, he's going to hit the scale at about 740. But I've decided that I'm not going to on Monday, instead of buying more calves, and maybe I buy a couple of calves. I'll figure it out. Maybe I'll buy 2, but on Sunday I'm gonna give the animals shots, and then I gotta go take a look at the new lease property, and I got all this going on, right? I got that new lease property to go look at, and then et cetera, et cetera. I got all this going on. I've been taking a look at that lease property, and I took a look at a couple of pictures of it, and it doesn't look like the owner's really done anything with it. If anything, it looks like the grass has been scalped. All right, it looks like the owner didn't really do anything. Put a couple of horses on the property, because here, and I talk about this in terms of growing grass. If you grow grass, like a lot of people, it's like you got grass and you go, oh my God, I got some grass, right? And so, it's not a lot, but I got some grass. And so you go and you buy your cattle. Well, if you put your cattle on that grass and you do not do anything to remineralize the field, once the animals have eaten the grass, the minerals in the grass will be stored in the bodies of the animals. The animals will grow, and then the minerals in your field will deplete. So I talk about this concept all the time, right? Even if you have grass, if you do not fertilize it, after you graze it once or twice, the grass will not grow back, because you have effectively depleted all of the minerals out of your field. All right, that's why. All right, and and when you take a look at a field like mine, I graze this grass 24/7 with about 3 animals per acre, sometimes even 4 or 5, and my grass still looks like this. All right, take a look at the result. This is not fake. Fake it till you make it is a joke. All right, either you make it or you don't. That's more realistic. Either you can or you can't. Don't lie to yourself. All right, there are a lot of things. I think a lot of people, it's like it turns into a coping mechanism, right? I think maybe it's a coping mechanism. It's like you got somebody, I don't know, and they think very highly of themselves, and they're they can't really do much. Right, and then you end up in a situation where now they're coping with that, right? And then now it turns into like an ego problem, right? The thing about me is that I don't fake it till I make it. I mean, faking it till you make it is a joke. You either make it or you don't. All right, this is what I legitimately mean when I say, if you're gonna do it or die in the process. There is no, oh my God, I tried. You either do it or you die in the process. Those are the only 2 things, the only 2 outcomes. All right, either you can or you can't. And here's the thing, I may actually end up outperforming myself, right? Because here's, and I was talking about, I may actually, I will, when I take a look at my situation, I will more than likely end up about something about, increasing the size of my business by about 325% over the next 9 months. I will actually increase the size of my business. You see what I'm doing right now. I will actually more than threefold this. I will probably increase the size of my business by about 350% over the next 9 months. And while I do that, I may actually be able to reduce my expenses. Right? I may actually be able to reduce my expenses. I may end up outperforming myself. All right, I will actually end up reducing my expenses. And I talked about how I'm going to do that, right? If I pay somebody $30 a bale to bale my hay for me, and that's all I have to do, I just call the dude, hey, bale my hay for me, and he charges me $30 a bale, and let's say I grow 700 bales of hay. I pay the guy 21 grand, and let's say I put it up on the market for 50 grand. Or not, excuse me, not 50 grand. Let's say I put it up on the market for $50 a bale. If I make $20 a bale, that's an extra $14,000 a year for me. And if I do not bale the grass will die because of the weather. All right, the grass is gone anyway. There is no saving the grass. Either I bale it or I don't. And if I don't, the grass dies. So I bale it. I pay the guy $30 a bale to bale it. And then I put it on the market for $50 a bale. If I don't sell it, I can just feed it to the animals and mix it with corn and distiller grains. I talk about this all the time. One of the most efficient diets that, one of the diets that I use is corn, distiller grains, and hay. Why soybeans and corn is another good diet. If you have alfalfa hay, if you give them, alfalfa, hay, and corn, that's also another good diet. Some distiller grains, wheat midds. There are a lot of things that you can feed animals. All right, a lot of things. Just look into it. Everything's effectively already been figured out. If you go on the internet, you can find this information for free. Whatever you have in your local area, use that. All right, go on the internet, look into it. All of this stuff is already published, and people have already figured this stuff out. If you have alfalfa that's cheap in your area, and you have a lot of dairy farms, and you can purchase cheap alfalfa, look up an alfalfa ration for your stocker cattle, for your growing beef calves. All right, if I can't sell the hay, I will just feed it to my animals, and when I feed it to my animals, I will mix it with corn and distiller grains, and I will just make my money back anyway. Right, and I will use that to effectively float my business during the summer and the winter. When I will use that money to float the expenses of my business in the summer and the winter, when my expenses are the highest. Because in the spring and in the fall, my expenses go negative in the spring and in the fall. Maybe, okay, for me to raise about 70 beef cattle, right now I got 35, okay? And so for me to run, and here's the thing, look at my field. All right, I have 35 animals right now. I have 20 animals here. Or I have 34 animals. I have 19 animals here, and then I have 15 animals on lease property number 1. Look at my field. All right, all of this costs about $1,000. Both of my fields combined costs about $1,200 a month for me to do everything. I'm not even close to harvesting all of this grass. Not even close. Not even close. All right, take a look at it, right? I have a massive amount of biomass still, and the grass is actually accumulating biomass faster right now because of the growth development stage that the grass is in and the weather conditions. April and May. By May, it starts getting a little bit hot, but there's usually enough moisture so that the plants don't die. I will probably be accumulating more biomass in April than I did in even January, February, or March. I will probably accumulate more biomass. All right, and here's the thing, my expenses are actually going down. I'm actually outperforming myself. I found a new way to generate some more revenue. All right, I'm actually outperforming myself. I thought I was going to do good, and I am doing substantially better. I can already tell you, and I'm not bragging about it. If anything, I would give it to God. All right, I did not know that I was going to do this well. I am legitimately doing so well at farming. And take a look at it. Fake it till you make it is a joke. You're not faking it to anybody. If anybody is worth anything, they're going to know immediately that you're an idiot. Fake it till you make it is a joke. Either you make it or you don't. Do it or die in the process. Those are your only two options. All right, and I'm not faking it. I've already made it. I make so much money, I don't even know how much money I make. Legitimately, my expenses are going down, and my revenue will probably increase by about 350% over the next 9 months, and my expenses will actually go down. All right, fake it till you make it is a joke. There is no faking it till you make it. All right, there is no faking it till you make it. You're not faking it to anybody. All right, you either make it or you don't. All right, and making it like this is, here's the thing. When you take a look at me farming, when you take a look at my results, you have to understand that this legitimately put me in the very, 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 very top percentiles of the entire US economy. The entire economy, not just farming. This put me in the very, 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 very top of the whole shebang. All right, I don't even know how much money I make. If we want to talk about it in terms of, and I was talking about my deal, right? Why did I structure the deal the way that I did, right? And, like, this is not fake. Like, I don't know how, this is not CGI, artificial intelligence generated grass or anything like that. This is all real life, okay? This is all, my cattle are real. My cattle exist. My business exists. My grass exists. This is not fake. All right, I don't know how else to put it. All right, this is real life. And if you fake it till you make it is such a joke. You're not faking it to anybody. You're practically a bum. I mean, chances are you're practically a bum. All right, borderline homeless. You're kind of pathetic. More than likely, almost everybody. If you think that fake it till you make it is a real thing, you're probably kind of a bum. Fake it till you make it is a joke. If you have a bunch of opinions and you have nothing, then you're also probably kind of a bum. All right, you probably are. You're probably closer to being homeless. You're 1 foot away from being homeless. You're not playing nobody. All right, there are a lot of, I talk about these things all the time, right? If you think fake it till you make it is a real thing, you're probably closer to being a bum than to making it anywhere. If you have a bunch of opinions and you have nothing, you're probably closer to a bum. If you're running the wrong direction completely, you're probably closer to being a bum. There are a lot of things. All right, I am showing you my results. This is what I'm doing. This is how I do it. This is how much money I make, and etc. This is how I structure my business deal, everything. I am showing it to you all for free. And when you take a look at my results, I am in the very, 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 very top percentiles of the entire US economy. The whole shebang. Not even just for farmers. The whole thing. I generate more money than effectively anybody in the entire country, just about. Short of like Warren Buffett or Elon Musk, or short of that. All right, but I do very well for myself, and I am on the up and up. That's very important, right? If you're, and I talk about this when you look at a business. Because I talked about this. If I said, okay, here's the thing. If I said that your business was important, right? Chances are it's not important, all right? And I know that sounds horrible. But I've already said, if you legitimately want to run a business, then buy one. Do not start a business, all right? Because here's the thing, but if you want to start a business, nobody's stopping you, right? I mean, nobody's stopping you. Don't let me stop you, right? I mean, but just understand that a majority of people fail, flat out fail. Majority, not even half, a majority, like 90% fail. Starting a business will be like the worst idea you've ever had in your entire life. You're a massive pile of problems, and you suddenly decided one day that throwing a Hail Mary into the middle of nowhere was going to save your life. Legitimately, there is a very real possibility that you're thinking like that if you want to start a business. All right, if you, and I talked about this, make the money first. Make the money first and then start your business, okay? Make your money first. That's how I did it. I made the money first. I didn't just go, oh my God, I'm just going to throw a Hail Mary into the middle of nowhere, and then when I start this business, everything's just going to turn into a magical adventure for me. I didn't do that, right? I mean, and fake it till you make it is a joke, all right? I mean, and how many years have I done this, right? My results are effectively the same every single year. Right, I do extremely well for myself. I mean, I do extremely well for my, and when you take a look at my results, this puts me in the very top percentiles of the entire US economy. I legitimately make so much money farming, I don't even know how much money I make. When I take a look at it, when I liquidate these 18 animals over the next 3 months, I will probably buy 40, and that will be just me reinvesting my earnings. Not taking any debt, with zero leverage, just reinvesting my earnings, and also my expenses are collapsing. The amount of money that it takes for me to run my business is actually going down very quickly. All right, my expenses are not even going up as I grow my business. My expenses are going down as I grow my business. I found new revenue sources, right? And if I cannot sell the hay, then I will just mix it with corn and distiller grains and feed it to my animals. All right, and then I can make my money back when the animals get fat. All right, I mean, my expenses are going down and my business is growing. My revenue, the amount of money that I'm making is going up on a vertical line, and my expenses are actually going down. Right, I've taken a look at different opportunities, and I found lease properties where the owner of the lease property will effectively just take the deal if I offer them the dividend. I didn't even have to buy any more land. Will I buy more land? Absolutely, I will buy more land. Why would I not buy more land, right? I mean, I'm going to buy more land. I will buy more land, but right now I effectively have I have enough of a runway to effectively grow my business for the next 2 or 3 months with no problem. I can effectively grow my business, full-on grow my business for about maybe 5 months right now. I could full-on grow my business and I didn't have to buy any land. I offered a dividend as a payout, and they accepted the deal. All right, that's what I offered. I really sat there and I really thought about it, and I offered the deal and they took it. And it's a good deal. All right, I really sat there and I really thought about how am I going to do this. And also yesterday I was talking about the whole thing about the payout is that the cattle are my money, right? But in the case that I decide that I would like to liquidate some of my cattle so that I can go and buy something, I would also pay a dividend of that pay. I would have to, it would be it would be the right thing to do to take the dividend payment out of that money too. All right, I will have to pay a dividend out of that money too. So if I decide, I just want to liquidate a few animals and I want to go and buy myself something, then I would have to pay a dividend of that money that I liquidated. All right, that would be the right thing to do. And so, I was thinking about that yesterday. And also one thing that I got to figure out mentally, I got to figure out what I'm going to do is, how am I going to structure debt into the deal? Because if I structure debt into the deal, then I am the one effectively taking all of the risk, right? I am the one taking all of the risk. The debt is entirely on me. It's me taking all of the risk. So how do I, structure that into the deal? Because it would not be fair for me to take all of the risk, right? It's not like the owner of the property. It's not like I made more money on the property that the owner leased me, and so I was able to buy more cattle. That's not what happened, right? I went to the bank and I took a loan and I purchased more cattle, and that is why I got more cattle. And if I take, I'm gonna have to think about how do I structure debt into the deal, because it would not be fair. Technically, it would not be fair for me to take all of the risk and then to share the reward, right? That would not be fair. So I will have to figure that out. But on the other hand, if I liquidate a few of my animals so that I have some money, because I want to go and buy something, right? Let's say one day I decide, I want to go and buy something. So I sell a couple of my cattle and I pocket the money. Well, I would have to pay a dividend of that money as well. That would be fair as well. All right, so that's what's fair. But I'm going to have to think about how do I structure debt into the deal. All right, how do I structure debt into the deal, right? Because it wouldn't be fair for me to take all of the risk, for me to effectively take 100% of the risk, and then not hold, and not distribute, and then it would be okay. It would be unfair for me to take all of the risk, to do everything, to take all of the risk, and then to distribute the profits. That would be unfair. Right, that would be unfair. Technically, that would be unfair. I'm not just saying like that. I'm not just saying, in terms of if you took a step back and took a look at the idea, it is unfair. So, how do I distribute the risk of the debt across everybody? How do I do that? Because, if I take a loan, it's not, because if I take a loan to buy more cattle, it's not like, oh, you leased me your property, and so I ran more cattle on your property, and when I sold those cattle and I grew the grass, and when I sold those cattle I could buy more cattle. That's not what happened, right? I went to the bank and took a loan, and with that loan, that loan is entirely connected to me, and it's holding me at risk for everything. And then I went and bought more cattle. And and then I raised those cattle by myself, effectively more or less by myself. and then I liquidated the cattle, and then to distribute all of the profits evenly would be unfair. That would be unfair. So I got to figure out how I'm going to do that too, all right? And, you know, you can take a look at the grass. I mean, the grass, I mean, it's probably, it's probably a foot tall all the way to the back. And I graze this grass about three cattle per acre. And, but fake it till you make it is a joke, okay? Fake it till you make it is a joke. I mean, I've done this for years, right? I've done this for years, and and I'm actually now at a point where my results are actually skyrocketing. My results are skyrocketing, and my expenses are actually going down. I'm actually reducing my expenses and increasing my revenue at the same time. And when you take a look at my situation, if you take a look at it for what it is, I legitimately 100%, this is real life. This is not fake it till you make it. Nobody cares about an opinion. Die poor with your opinion. Nobody cares about an opinion. I did so well at farming. I legitimately did so well farming that it put me in the very, 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 very top percentiles of the entire US economy. The whole shebang. I legitimately practically outperformed everybody to a drastic degree. Almost everybody. Drastically. I mean, it wasn't even close. That's the reality, right? Fake it till you make it is a joke. All right, you either make it or you don't. And if you have a bunch of opinions and you have nothing to show for it, you're probably closer to being a bum. All right, I don't know how else to put it. You probably are. Nobody cares about your opinion. What are you going to do with your opinion? Sue me. Have fun. All right, what are you going to do with your opinion? You're going to go to the bank and take a loan with your opinions? What are you going to do with your opinions? All right, what are you going to do with your opinions? Opinions don't mean anything. You cannot be in a situation where you have a bunch of opinions. And I talk about this like, if you're poor and you're proud, that's horrible. You have a bunch of opinions and you have no money. You should probably just go and make some money. Should you sell your soul to the devil to do it? No, I would not suggest you do that. Right? I would not suggest you do that. It doesn't work out. All right, you might think it's going to work, but it doesn't. That's the whole thing about selling your soul to the devil, is that the reason people do it, I would whatever, right? I would assume or anticipate, whatever. It's probably because it sounds like a good idea, but it's never a good idea to sell your soul to the devil. All right, it's just not a good idea. If you sell your soul to the devil, especially, but selling your soul to the devil, it does not work. It might sound like it's going to work, but it doesn't. And I talked about this in terms of something like this. If you are effectively not in a situation where you are legitimately going to work on it every day for the next 10 years of your life, you're not going to make it. My results, when you take a look at my situation, I have some of the best results in the entire world. When you're taking a look at me, you're effectively getting an opportunity to watch somebody who, I legitimately did so well farming in the year 2024, and in the year 2025, it will be drastically worse. Drastically worse. In the year 2024, I did so well farming that it put me in the very, very, very top percentiles of the entire US economy. I don't even know how much money I make. I don't. I make a lot. Legitimately, I make a lot, and my income is actually going up very quickly. I would actually anticipate that over the next 3 months, when I will have 18 animals ready to go to market in the next 3 months. All right, I will have 18 animals ready to go for market in the next 3 months, and when I liquidate these 18 animals, I will probably make enough money to buy about 40, something like that, about 40. All right, so I will effectively be growing my herd by 22 animals. That's just in the next 3 months, and that would be if I took zero debt. If I just leverage just my earnings, not my entire herd, but just my earnings 1 for 1. I would not be buying 40 animals, I would be buying 62. And that would put me at just zero for just my earnings. My herd would still be in the net positive, and probably producing a profit for several months. The rest of my herd, right? I mean, if I sell 18 animals and I have 34 animals, then how many animals do I have left over, right? I have 16 animals left over. So those 16 animals are probably still going to continue to produce a profit. And I'm not going to leverage against the 16 animals at all. So if I leverage just my earnings 1-for-1, and let's say I sell 18 animals and I buy 40, how many animals would I have to buy to leverage my earnings 1-for-1? I would have to buy an extra 22 animals, right? So I would sell 18 and I would buy 62. And what happens when that happens? My earnings effectively go to zero, but I double the cash flow output, right? I increase the number of animals that I am appreciating at the same time. So I effectively increase my cash flow. That's why I do it, right? That's the big idea. I increase my cash flow. All right, so that's the big idea. But when you take a look at my situation, I mean, nobody is waking up tomorrow and doing this. I don't know how else to put it to you. Nobody is. Nobody's offering me money to do anything. All right, I make plenty of money. I make I don't even know how much money I make. I don't. All right, I don't even know how much money I make. I don't. I make a lot. All right, when you take a look at my situation, I effectively did so well at farming. I effectively did so well farming that it put me in the very, 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 very top percentiles of the entire U.S. economy. And take a look at my results, right? This is not the first time that this has happened. This happens, I've done this year after year, right? I mean, my results are all, I have some of the best results in the world, and I've proven it year after year after year. Right, I legitimately have such good results farming that it put me in the very top percentiles of the entire U.S. economy. Not just farmers, the whole shebang. All right, I don't even know how much money I make. I don't. And I'm legitimately showing you how I do this for free. Nobody's paying. I don't care about your money. Money's not going to do anything. If I legitimately felt like I needed more money, I would just farm more land. I would just run more cattle. All right, but in terms of a reality sense, why do I do this? Because to this day, I have not seen anybody do even 10%. Not even 10%. Most people cannot even make $2,000 a month on a 10.5 acre field. That's why I do it, because I want to see people do better. And I'm not an altruistic person. I've already said this, that may be what I want. That may be why I'm doing this. But I'm not an altruistic person about it, all right? Either you do it or you don't. That's fake it till you make it is a joke. Bunch of opinions and no money is a joke. All right, you cannot be in a situation where you're, oh my God, I'm just gonna fake it till I make it, right? I've already said this. If you're leasing a Lambo, if you're in a situation where you're buying a Rolex or you're leasing a Lambo, thinking that it makes you look rich so that you can post it on the internet, anybody who knows anything, cars are cheap. All of them are cheap. Every single last one of them are cheap. If you legitimately had money, you would be buying a yacht. You would be buying a private jet. You would be, in 50 years, you'll probably be buying a rocket ship. Nobody thinks you're rich because you have a Lamborghini. Lamborghinis, all of them are cheap. All of them. Maybe, except for maybe not the most expensive Lamborghini in the world, but effectively 99% of all Lamborghinis are cheap. 99% of all Ferraris are cheap. 99% of all Rolexes are cheap. All right, if you legitimately had money, you wouldn't, and that's the thing about me, and I'm not saying this to brag, it's not what, I don't, it's whatever, and I'm just gonna be honest about it. God as my witness, I'm just gonna be honest about it. The whole situation with me is that if you took a look at me, you would probably have no idea that I was like legitimately one of the wealthiest people in the entire country. You would probably have no idea. Nobody probably would. All right, and me, I'm more or less, I mean, you probably would not know. And you probably would not. I don't wear jewelry, right? I don't have nice clothes. I drive an F-150. Sometimes I think about buying myself an F-350, and if I bought myself an F-350, I mean, I could pay for an F-350 cash with 2 months of my earnings. If I just took 2 months of money out of my business and I could buy myself an F-350 cash. All right, but I mean, you probably would have no idea. I mean, the reality, you probably don't. I mean, if you looked at me, you would have no idea. I mean, most people wouldn't. I don't have any Rolexes. I don't have a Lamborghini. And when you take a look at what I do, I am in the very, 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 very top percentiles of the entire U.S. economy. Not even just farmers. The whole shebang. All right, it is what it is. Nobody cares about an opinion. If you have a bunch of opinions and you have no money, if you have nothing to show for it, or even worse, if you have a bunch of opinions and you just kind of suck, that's not good. You're probably a bum. All right, it's not funny. And I'm not saying this to kick you while you're down. I'm not, but there are a lot of indicators for this, right? How do poor people think? A bunch of opinions, no money. A bunch of opinions, nothing to show for it. Scraping out the bottom all the time. Not really doing any better at all ever. Right? I mean, effectively, scraping out the bottom all the time and not doing any better, is effectively the same thing. Right? It's effectively the same thing. There are a lot of indicators for this. All right? How do poor people think? And there is no benefit to being poor. I'm not saying broke. I'm saying legitimately poor. There are a lot of indicators for this. You have a bunch of opinions. You have nothing to show for it. You're scraping out the bottom all the time. You're not really doing any better at all ever. Right? I mean, what's another one? I fell out of heaven at 7 and my life's a magical journey. Right? You're poor and you're proud of yourself. You've convinced yourself that there's a reason that you should be poor. There are a lot of things that poor people do. A lot of things. Legitimately poor people. All right, a lot of things. So there are a lot of indicators for this. Right, and when you take a look at just what I am showing you, as this is real life. And also, here's the thing about me, is that I did not just wake up one day and become like the best farmer that the world had ever known. I did not. It took a long time, and I put a lot of emphasis on this idea. If you are not effectively in a situation where you are effectively dedicated to it to a very high degree, you are not going to make it. Not even to the 10% mark if you live to be 5,000. Legitimately. That is the reality. All right, nobody cares what you want. Nobody cares what you think. Nobody cares about your journey. And I know that sounds horrible. But I don't know what to tell you. All right, if you don't make it, then you don't make it. Fake it till you make it is a joke. You either make it or you don't. All right, that's more of a reality case. You either make it or you don't. All right, and here's the thing. If you manage to get to the 10% mark of what I do, you could actually practice for free. And if you practice for free over a very long period of time, that's effectively the most practical thing that I can tell you. That's the most practical thing that could be done. Nobody's waking up tomorrow and doing this. Nobody. Not even close. Not even close. I effectively have some of the best results in the entire world. When you take a look at my output, when you take a look at what I do, I effectively did so well farming that it put me in the very top percentiles of the entire U.S. economy. I don't even know how much money I make. I don't. I make plenty. I pay myself about $20,000 a month, and that's not even all of the money that I make. I just pay myself I pay myself about $15,000-$20,000 a month, because with that amount of money, I can effectively do whatever it is that I need. That's not even all of the money that I make. That's just how much I pay myself. All right, that's what this looks like in terms of a monetary number. And my income is actually going up very quickly, very quickly. I may actually end up increasing my income by about 350% over the next 9 months. Over the next 3 months, I will more than likely liquidate about 18 animals. And for those 18 animals, I will probably make enough money to buy 40. And that would be with me using zero leverage. If I used leverage just 1-for-1 of just my earnings, I would have to purchase 62 animals over the next 3 months. And my expenses are actually going downwards while I do this. I will bale the hay, and if I cannot sell the hay, I'll just feed it to my animals in the summer and in the winter when my expenses are very high. right? You know, my expenses are actually going downwards. All right, you know, I'm actually outperforming myself. You know, and I don't know how else to put it. And, you know, trust me, nobody's offering me anything. Nobody's offering me, you know, and I'm not asking you to pay me. I don't want your, trust me, your worthless money is not going to do anything to me. It's not going to worth any, it's not worth anything to me. Yeah, even if you offer, you know, if you offered me $200,000, you could speak to me for 2 hours about business. All right, that's the payout. If you legitimately want to talk to me about business, you can talk to me for 2 hours about business, and it will cost you 200 grand. But I'm not, you know, trust me, I don't want money from anybody. I'm not even asking you to pay me. I'm giving you this information for free. When you take a look at my situation, I am effectively in the entire, out of the entire US economy, I am in the very, 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 very top percentiles of the whole shebang. Effectively the whole thing. All right, you know, that's the reality. This is what my results look like. This is how I did it. This is what I do. You know, I'm telling you everything for free. All right, you know, and I'm not, you know, trust me, I'm not selling courses on YouTube. Nobody's paying me to do anything. Nobody's paying me to do anything. Trust me. You know, if you legitimately want to talk to me about business, you can give me 200 grand and I will talk to you for 2 hours. You're not going to get more than 2 hours. It doesn't matter who you are. Trust me. I don't want money from anybody. Nobody's, you know, and I'm not saying this to be a horrible, malicious person when I say nobody's going to offer me anything, but you have to understand that from my perspective, all right, you know, it's like, just consider it. I make more money in 1 month than than several people put together in 1 month for their entire annual salary. Now, I make more money in 1 month than several people put together for their entire annual salary. You know, a lot of people would gladly sell their, they'll sell their soul for nothing. Right? Oh my God, they'll sell their soul for nothing. Trust me, I don't care about your deal. I don't. Nobody's going to offer, whatever. I'm not saying that to be a horrible, malicious person. I'm just saying if I legitimately felt like I needed more money, then I would just run more cattle. I would just farm more land. I'm not going to go out on some, mystical, magical journey with my buddy pals. All right, oh my God, trust me, I don't care. I make plenty of money, and you can take a look at this animal. You can tell he's conditioning, right? I mean, you can tell he's conditioning. He probably weighs about 750 right now. And I bought him on March 3rd at 645 pounds, but he needs to put on a little bit more conditioning. I would actually say he's at about a 4.5 right now. But that's the thing, that nobody's offering me to do any, you're not paying me, you're not going to offer me anything. And I know that sounds horrible, but I'm not saying that to be malicious, but nobody's going to offer me anything. All right, if I legitimately felt like I needed more money, I would just run more cattle. All right, I would just run more cattle. I would just farm more land. When you take a look at this whole thing, you have to understand that it just is what it is. Nobody cares about an opinion. I effectively did so well at farming that it put me in the entire U.S. economy. Money talks, right? Money talks. It is what it is. Nobody cares about an opinion. I even show you my checks. This is how much I pay myself. Right? I even show you my checks. Right? I mean, money is, nobody cares about your opinion. If you have, but I talk about indicators of poorness, right? What are some signs that you are definitely poor? You have a bunch of opinions and you have nothing to show for it. You're not doing any better for yourself. You're scraping out the bottom all the time. I fell out of heaven at 7 and my life's a magical journey. I mean, there are a lot of indicators, all right? There are a lot of indicators of being poor. Legitimately poor, not broke, legitimately poor. All right, money's why I can't do something, legitimately poor. When have you heard me say, why, do you know why I can't do this? Because I don't have $500. When's the last time you heard me say that? Never. And if I ever say something like that, I will legitimately throw myself off a bridge. When have you ever heard me say I can't do this because I don't have $500? Right? There are a lot of more important things to think about than $500. What kind of fertilizer are you going to use? Have you taken a look at the mineral levels of your field? Have you do you even understand what a beef animal is? I mean, do you understand what a commercial standard is? Do you even know how to run a business? Right? There are a lot of other things to think about than, oh my God, I don't have $500. And here's the thing, my expenses are actually going to go down. My expenses will actually go downwards. And my results will actually go upwards drastically. That's the reality, all right? And how will I do that, right? You know, I'll bale hay. I'm not gonna bale it myself. You know, I got a guy who's gonna bale the hay, and if I cannot sell the hay at $50 a bale, I will just feed it to my animals. All right, I'll mix it with distillers grains and I'll mix it with corn, and when I feed it to my animals, they will put on weight. And when I do that, I will make my money back, and I will probably even make a profit, a substantial profit. Right? I mean, it just is what it is. I mean, you know, nobody's paying me to do anything. I make plenty of money. I make plenty of money. I don't worry about money. When you take a look at the reality, fake it till you make it is a joke. You're not faking it to anybody. And if you legitimately think that leasing a Lamborghini and buying yourself a Rolex is going to make you look rich, then you're an idiot. All cars are cheap. Effectively, all of them. 99.9% of all vehicles are cheap. If you legitimately want an expensive vehicle, go and buy yourself a yacht. Go and buy yourself a private jet. Go and buy yourself a rocket ship. All right, nobody thinks your Lamborghini is cool and expensive. Lamborghinis are effectively, they're all cheap. Ferraris, they're all effectively cheap. Every single last one of them. All right, if you're legitimately in a situation where you think, a Lamborghini is going to make you look cool, if you're in a situation where you think a Rolex is going to make you look cool, they're not going to make you look cool. If anything, they're going to make, to anybody who actually knows anything, you're just going to look like an idiot. You're going to look like an idiot in a Lamborghini with a Rolex on. All right, I mean, that's what it honestly turns into. All right, like if you legitimately knew how to run a business or anything, like if you were actually a highly, the thing, like me, you probably wouldn't, and I'm not saying this to brag, I'm not whatever. If you saw me in real life, you would probably have zero idea that I was legitimately in the very, 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 very top percentiles of the entire U.S. economy. And if I told you that I was a cattle farmer, you would probably even, whatever, right? You even less. You would have less of an idea. Like, if you legitimately asked me what I did for a living, and I told you that I was a cattle farmer, you would probably not look at me and go, oh my God, this guy's a cattle farmer and he does so well at this that he's in the very, 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 very top percentiles of the whole shebang. You would probably have no idea. You probably wouldn't. Most people wouldn't. All right, and here's the thing. In the year 2025, I'm actually even going to do better. I will do drastically better. I may even be able to increase the size of my business by 350% and reduce my expenses at the same time. I may legitimately be able to do that. All right, I don't know what else. Nobody's offering me anything. All right, nobody's offering, and I'm not saying that to be a malicious person, but legitimately nobody's going to offer me anything. You're not going to pay me to do anything. I don't care if you died tomorrow. All right, and the thing about farming is that nobody's waking up and doing this tomorrow. All right, it's not possible. It's not possible. Have fun with your mystical, magical journey. If you legitimately think that you're going to wake up tomorrow and become like the most successful farmer that the world had ever known, then go and do it. Let's see it. I show you my results. This is not fake. I show you my results. I even show you my checks. All right, this is not fake. All right, and I don't know how else to put it. I mean, nobody's offering me to do it. Nobody's going to pay me to do anything. All right, nobody's paying me to do anything. Trust me, I don't care about your deal. If you legitimately want to talk to me about business, then it's $100,000 an hour, and it's for 2 hours tops. I'm not going to talk to you for more than 2 hours about business. I can probably tell you your answer within 5 seconds. It's not going to happen. That's the answer. All right. Whatever it is, it's probably, and if you legitimately want to talk to me for 2 hours about business, then you can pay me $200,000. Other than that, I don't care about your opinion. Nobody cares about your opinion. Nobody's going to make it like this tomorrow. You're not going to wake up tomorrow and do this. If you legitimately want to make it like this, you are effectively going to have to be in a situation where you are effectively working on it every single day for like the next 15 years of your life. That's the situation that you have to be in. And if you're not in that, if you're not willing to do that, then you're not magically going to get the results. When you take a look at what I do so well farming that it put me in the top percentiles of the entire U.S. economy. The whole shebang. I legitimately don't even know how much money I make. I don't. I make a lot. I don't even know how much money I make. And I show you my results. This is what my grass looks like. This is how I run my business. Take a look at my cattle. I mean, this is how I structure my deal. I tell you how to do everything, right? I mean, this is not fake it till you make it. If you legitimately fake it till you make it is a joke. You either make it or you don't. And if you're legitimately going to make it, I mean, it is going to probably be the hardest thing that you have ever done in your entire life. It will take a long time. A long time. I mean, if you're not effectively going to work on this every single day for the next 12 years of your life, you're not even going to get to the 10% mark if you live to be 5,000. And to this day, I have not seen anybody even do 10%. Not one person. Legitimately not one person. I have not seen one person do 10%. Most people cannot make $2,000 a month on a 10.5 acre field. Most people can't. Not even 2,000. Forget 20,000. Most people can't do 2. All right, and if you cannot get to the 10% mark, then I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, you better not, if you're in a situation where you can't even do 10% and you have a lot of opinions, that's not good. You're probably closer to being a bum than anything else. A homeless person. Why do you have so many opinions? You're practically homeless. Right? I mean, there are a lot of other things to do than just have a bunch of opinions. Like go and work on something, go and read a book, go and do something. I mean, figure it out, right? I mean, there are a lot of things to do than just sit there and go, I fell out of heaven at 7 and my life's a magical journey. And if everything doesn't work out for me, then I'm gonna turn into some resentful moron. There are a lot of things that you can do, right? Go read a book. Go and, and I give you good information, right? I give you the best information that I can. I mean, come up with something. Oh, I got this little piece of grass and I'm going to go and I'm going to put some fertilizer on it. Right? What kind of fertilizer am I going to use, right? I mean, what are you going to do to the soil? How much rain do you think you're going to get? How wet do you think your soil is? Think about stuff like that. Think about stuff like that. I'm not telling you what to think, but that's more of a, in terms of, if you're sitting there going, I fell out of heaven at 7 and my life's a magical journey, you're legitimately, you're going to be practically a bum for the rest of your life. All right, you're practically going to be a bum for the rest of your life. Go and read a book. Go into, I give you the best information that I can. I have some of the best results in the world, not just for farming, but the entire U.S. economy. I have some of the best financial results in the entire U.S. economy. And I give you my information for free. Right, go and fertilize your grass. Go and plant some grass. I mean, start your own LLC. Do something like, buy yourself a business. Put some money in the S&P 500. Do something. I mean, something else. Anything other than my life's a magical adventure and lying to yourself and delusional fantasy and anything other than that. If you're scraping out the bottom, then you're scraping out the bottom. It's an objective fact. All right, if you're leveraged to the eyeballs, then you're leveraged to the eyeballs. It's an objective fact. All right, it doesn't matter that you lied to yourself. All right, fake it till you make it is a joke. You're not impressing anybody, especially not people like me. All right, if you took a look at me, you would probably have no idea. That's the thing about you probably would have no idea. And I'm not saying, but I've already said, I probably can't even hide it anymore, and after a certain point, I mean, I'm telling you the amount of money that I make is going to go vertical. It's going vertical as we speak. And I already effectively outperformed the entire U.S. economy in the year 2024. In the year 2025, it's going to become drastically worse. I'm not going to say worse. I'm actually going to I may even outperform myself. That's how I'm going to put it. All right, I do very well for myself. I don't even know how much money I make. I make a lot. I pay myself 20 grand, and that's not even close to all of the money that I make. I pay myself 20 grand because that's effectively how much money I've decided that I wanted, or that not wanted. That's how much money I need, so I just pay myself that much. All right, I don't know how else to put it. It is what it is. Okay, fake it till you make it is a joke. You're not faking it to anybody. If you have a bunch of opinions and you have nothing to show for it, then that's an objective fact. All right, you cannot be in a situation, and there are a lot of ways to tell if somebody's poor. Legitimately poor, not broke. Fake it till you make it, you're poor. You have a bunch of opinions, but you have nothing to show for it. You're poor. I fell out of heaven a 7 in my life's a journey. You're poor. All right, you're a bum. You're not hiding it from nobody, especially not people like me. You're practically a bum. You're actually closer to being a bum than anything else. All right, oh, well, yesterday I read this book and today I'm working on my business and I'm moving my business forward. I actually made myself more money today and my cattle look better. And then oh, well, I mean, this guy's not faking it. That's the kind of stuff that I talk about, right? I talk about my cattle, my assets, my business, my forward projections. Why do I think that, no delusional fantasies, no Disneyland adventures, right? I anticipate that I will sell 18 animals and I will buy about 40, 35 to 40. Very reasonable stuff. I found a piece of land and I structured a deal to pay out a dividend, reinvest the money, and then I get to keep the equity in the animals. Very realistic stuff, no Disneyland adventures, no worthless opinions. Right? Very, very, very straightforward stuff. Right? And when you take a look at what I do, you have to understand that I actually outperform effectively the entire U.S. economy. The entire U.S. economy, not just farmers. The whole shebang. I effectively outperform the entire U.S. economy. Farming. All right, it is what it is. Nobody cares about an opinion. And I'm actually going to do better for myself. My expenses are actually probably going to go downwards as my revenue goes up. I actually found another way to make money. All right, and if I can't make money selling it, then I'll just feed it to my animals. And then I'll make my money back anyway, and a profit. I mean, but it is what it is. And that's it for me today, YouTube. You have a good one.